In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bill's Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about bad Chicago baseball. Again, we're going to be talking about the lead up to the Bulls and the Blackhawks draft and a little Bears tidbits here and there. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. We just passed Father's Day, but if you want to get a belated Father's Day gift for the dads in your life, head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how are you doing on this very humid and hot June day in Chicago?
Well, outside of sports, can't complain. Cannot complain. Things are good. Enjoyed the weekend with the family, and that was really, really nice. But I'm sitting here in nice air-conditioned basement, and boy, on days like this, does it remind you how good it feels to just step into an air-conditioned room when you're like out even for just a few seconds in the heat. Like it's one of the best feelings.
Yeah, so I started a new job, and my office is downtown. And so walking from the L to the office is just like brutal, because I'm wearing like a dress shirt and I'm just sweating. And I walk into the building and it feels like I'm in like a meat locker. And I'm like, oh, this is good. Breathe it in.
Yeah, I get my office building in Hoffman Estates does a very good job of keeping it nice and cool in there. So I don't have to walk like you do. I mean, I have to go from a parking garage into the building, which is only like a few steps, but it's still like really nice, even when you're just out for a few seconds and it hits really hard, that just wall of nice, cool air.
Yep. And I close the blinds because I have a window view overlooking the river and in my office. But the sun comes in there and makes it hot. I close the shades and I just absorb the cool air.
Yep.
We start with the Cubs.
Yeah.
Man, so last night I was busy and I was like, I got home. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the dog for a walk and I'm gonna flip on, the end of the game and hopefully watch the Cubs wrap this game up. And I turn it on, and Hector Neris walks a guy. And first I'm like, oh God, the Cubs are up by two. There's a one out, or there's one on and a guy at bat. And I'm like, do not give up a 2-run shot to tie this. Do not give up a 2-run shot. He walks that guy and then gives up the 3-run shot. And I was like, really? Really, universe? That's how you twist my words? I meant I want the Cubs to win.
So, um, last night, I I just kind of sat there in silence for a few minutes. And I've been really pissed off and fed up with all these losses, whether it's one of the 16 blown saves this year or all these games over the past few weeks where you score 1-0 runs and your fake rally ends with a fly ball to the warning track, which has ended multiple games over the past week. It's literally watching the same movie, but last night, every ounce of hope I had kind of just evaporated. And I realize it's June 18th and the NL is pretty shitty right now. So nobody's out of it, but you're the third worst record in the National League. You're in last place. Every team ahead of you has the tiebreaker in the division. The Brewers have it, the Cardinals have it, the Pirates have it, the Reds have it. Your record against the division is abysmal. This felt like the point of no return to me. And I know baseball's weird and anything can happen, but in terms of me having expectations at this point, they're gone. They're officially gone. And even if they rattle off a few wins here, I'm going to need to see a hell lot more because there is a lot of damning stats. I just mentioned one, the blown saves. Did you see the other big stat that came out last night from Jesse Rogers by any chance?
I don't think I did.
They lead baseball in outs on the bases.
Oh, God.
They lead baseball on outs on the bases. Not to mention all the defensive fuck ups. For a team that was supposedly supposed to be relied on run prevention, your starting pitching has been great. You can't ask for much better. Outside those few Kyle Hendricks starts, what you've gotten from Imanaga and Javier Assad, Justin Steele had 2 rough starts against the Pirates, but overall he's had plenty of other good starts as well. He pitched good enough the other week against the Rays to win. He pitched 6 shutout innings. But the bullpen and the hitting, it's wrecked all of it. It's completely wrecked all of it. And the maddening thing is last night, you finally rallied late. And against a team that's not named the frickin' White Sox. The White Sox are the White Sox. But, you rallied late. Ian Happ hits the big 3-run homer. You scored 6 runs. That's how many runs you scored the entire series at home against the Cardinals with the wind blowing out. And you still fucked it up. You took a lead initially. It took 2 pitches for Hayden Wesneski to give up another home run. And that's how it's always been. He comes in, you take a lead, literally the first batter, he hangs a breaking ball, and it's out. It's happened multiple times. It is insane how 2-script this team is, the way they lose. Except, I'll give them this, they found something new last night. That big rally in the 9th inning by the Giants, you had a catcher's interference by your negative WAR catcher. One of your 2 negative WAR catchers. You see a pattern here?
Yeah. So I'm going to mean this stat as a beacon of hope. And I know it's not going to come off that way. It's not going to be received that way. If you ended every single Cubs game this season after 7 innings, the Cubs have the best record in baseball.
That makes it even more infuriating.
Now, this stat is just going to make you mad, period. No gleam of hope in this one. The Cubs haven't won back-to-back games except against the White Sox since the first weekend of May.
That was over a month ago.
That was like a month and almost 3 weeks ago.
And all these losses were to your division. You don't have any tiebreakers against any of them. I don't see a reason for hope right now.
But what's wild is they're only 2 games out of the wild card.
I know. I know. To me, that's more of a testament of how bad the NL wild card race is.
Yeah, there's 2 teams out of it in the NL. That is it.
Yep. Look at the Mets. They're surging right now. How long it's going to last, I don't really know. But almost everyone except those 2 teams, which I believe is what, the Marlins and the Nationals? Right?
The Rockies.
The Rockies.
Yeah.
That means the Nationals are better than us?
Yes. Yes, we are 2 games behind the Nationals. The Nationals are tied for they're tied with the Giants for the last wild card spot.
Which that's not going to last.
No, probably not. But they're 8-2 in their last 10. And they're on a 3-game winning streak.
How is it the same movie every single day?
I don't know. It feels like we're in Groundhog Day.
It really does. And
except that was a good movie.
Yeah, no kidding. And I feel like I look at Hector Neris and I'd be like, he might be okay. And then he blows up, just like in Groundhog Day. And Sean, what did we say the first few months with Hector Neris as the closer when we looked at the whip, the walk rate? What did we all say? It was going to
Uh,
blow up in his
it
face
was gonna
eventually.
absolutely blow up.
And what's happened over the past week or so?
It has absolutely blown up.
And the crazy thing is, one of the saves he got, he was inches away from blowing that too. You could have easily gotten swept in Tampa Bay as easy as you could have swept them. You could have easily won all three of those games.
He comes running out of the bullpen. He's like, "It's Ned Ryerson." But the Cubs are so bad. So on the elevator in my building at work, there's like a screen that has news and things, and they show like the baseball scores and the standings. They didn't even show the Cubs in the NL Central standings. They just left them off.
Oh man, it's almost like it feels like the Bears mid-season when they've yet to get into the in the hunt graphic.
And they're like, yeah, we're just not going to put them there. It's good. But I I know I keep seeing all these stories about like, oh, what trade is going to be best for the Cubs? What trade should the Cubs make? They've got a lot of needs. What's the best trade the Cubs should make? Why should the Cubs make a trade? Like this is a pretty much I mean, I know we've got like a month and almost a half for the deadline. So in theory, anything can happen. Cubs could go on some magical tear and be have the wild card locked up, whatever. But it's most likely the stats are and the record is at this point who they are, and I just don't see the point in going out. Maybe like a small one. They just made the trade with the Phillies for that catcher, where it was cash considerations. Fine, it's a guy that's not even on the 40-man roster. Okay, I'm fine with those. Whatever. But I don't want to trade from like our top of our farm system for rental players when we're not going to make the playoffs. It just seems stupid.
Well, what's sad is look at the situation you're in. You're in hell. And you know what? That's where we've seen the Bears for many years. That's where we see the Bulls. That's where we saw the White Sox for many years. This is all too familiar territory for the third largest market in the country. It's another team stuck in hell. Yes, you have a good farm system, but you've kind of log jammed your roster where you've gathered a bunch of okay to decent to good players, but you don't have any superstars. And the only way to really get a superstar is probably to trade for one because you might have a deep farm system and maybe someone blossoms into something great. But right now, you don't have a Chris Bryant in the wings. That's going to be your next cornerstone. I like Owen Casey. I like Matt Shaw. I like Kevin Alcantara. But do I look at them the same way I looked at Chris Bryant or Javier Baez or Kyle Schwarber when they were building? Not quite. At least not right now. And I really like Owen Casey, but I Chris Bryant was the number one prospect in baseball. That was a true foundational piece. And then, it's like you've log jammed yourself already. And where do you go from here?
Question number one I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you envision PCA's role in the Cubs' future, and what type of player is he for this team?
So I don't want to go fully judge yet, even though the bat hasn't come around, but I think he's closer to a Kevin Kiermaier than a legitimate like five-tool star. He's a menace on the bases and with the glove. Like that is an asset there, but I don't think he's going to be your everyday superstar outfielder. I mean, if he ends up being kind of your defensive replacement pinch hit weapon, so be it, as long as the rest of your lineup can hit. But while I don't want to write everything off yet, I don't see a full superstar. I mean, right now, the bat just looks very overmatched.
I'm pretty close to where you are. He's not a 4A player because his glove and his speed on the base path are way too good. They push him well over the 4A mark.
Yes, yes.
But that bat, and you know, I know he can hit some home runs, but
A
I
lot of
feel
holes.
I feel like I feel like he's going to be best served as a guy just get him on base. Don't worry, I don't care if his batting average and his slugging percentage are only 40 points apart. Is get on base. Is just get on base. If he could drop those power numbers and raise up the batting average and the on base percentage with that speed, all right, he could be a good leadoff hitter. Like, or have the weapons of a leadoff hitter for you, set the table. I I don't want them to fuck with his swing and try to make him into somebody he's not.
You know what I picture you right now. For any of you who've seen Major League Two, it's like when Willie Mays Hayes tries to hit for power, and you have Lou Brown come in. Every time you hit one in the air, you owe me 20 push-ups.
That's literally what I have in my head.
See, great minds think alike.
He just instead of running it out, he's just dropping and giving him 20. uh,
PCA, why
that
are you doing that? Sean Hopman told me to.
that's what I want. Like I don't like I not everybody has to be a power hitter, and sure, it's exciting when he hits one, when they send him back down to the minors and he hits a home run. Like I just want him to get on base and run those bases, score score from first on a single. Like that's what I want. Give me that Javi Baez treatment on the bases.
Right.
Like
And
I'm good. I'm good with that. If he could get a high on base percentage and be good on the base path and that great fielder, then that's a win in my book.
yeah.
I just they just don't stop trying to make him stop with the launch angle, stop with you know, the messing with his mechanics. Just let the guy go up there and slap some balls.
That sounds nice. And I think that one of the frustrating things as a whole is you look at this lineup and you don't really see an identity because you're not exactly good at putting the ball in play and being pesky, nor are you good at hitting the ball out of the ballpark. It's a
Yep.
bad combination. Like, it's almost like be one or the other because you're not getting anything in the air that's going out of the ballpark enough. You do it kind of in pockets where like you'll have a game or two where you hit a few homers and then you'll just go on a complete homer drought and you're just flying to the warning track. But look at your lineup right now. The guy that's supposed to be slapping the ball the other way and making good contact is Nico Horner. And he's not doing that. And he's hurt too. So it's even harder for him. We've seen a lot of like lazy fly balls from Horner. Where you're like, last year he was able to straighten that out and shoot it the other way, and he's just not. And that's hurt you a lot. And you're not getting enough of that timely contact, nor are you getting that power. I mean, th- two of the three games against the Cardinals in ideal wind blowing out weather, you couldn't get anything to leave the ball yard.
I all right. I don't like having an organizational philosophy for batting. Every batter is different. Every batter has a strength, weakness, holes. Uh, you know, go out there and emphasize what they're good at. Help them, minimize those weaknesses, close some of those holes, and be the best hitter that they can be in the style that they are. And then bring in players that if you have like, hey, we want to bring in more power, or we want some more power on this team, instead of trying to make everybody into power hitters, like, well, we're going to do launch angles and uh and take and swing more on first pitch. Like, no, just find people that do that. Pay the money for a power hitter. Don't try to convert somebody into a power hitter that's not a power hitter. Find a guy that has like decent pop and try to make him into a power hitter. Find a damn power hitter and pay them the money. It's stop having an organizational philosophy. It's one thing if you're like, hey, we're trying to be more aggressive. Okay, I guess that's fine. Or try to be a little more patient. Or our goal is to try to, you know, uh, get the starting pitcher out as quick as possible and get to the bullpen. But let guys hit how they're going to hit. Like Christopher Morel, just let him hit line drives. Some of them are going to go out, but let him hit line drives. The PCA, when he's with the big club, just let him hit how he's going to hit. Like, let guys. Sure, if you see a hole, like, you know what, you're really bad at reading the splitter. Like, all right, let's work on that. But you know, just let guys be who they're going to be. They've played baseball for a long time. At some point, they are who they are, and you should have scouted that. Don't try to make a change.
And I mean, here's what bothers me is this organizational philosophy relies so much on getting the maximum from a group of guys where you need everything to be clicking just so. You don't have that superstar buffer. You don't try. I feel like they don't always prioritize results. They prioritize what they think they're going to get. And that's like, oh, well, his BABIP says, his WOBA says. I mean, you can look at all that stuff, but, again, your most reputable hitter on that team is probably Cody Bellinger, who is a good player and was an MVP at one point, but that was a long time ago. And you don't have a Juan Soto or a Shohei Ohtani or an Aaron Judge or a Giancarlo Stanton or any of those type of big dogs that are just going to put up the numbers every single year. And yeah, guess what? Some of it is on the players themselves. Dansby Swanson has been a joke this year, and he's your highest paid player. He's hurting you actively. Nico Horner hasn't been hitting his normal self. You haven't seen consistent health from Seiya Suzuki, though I think he's hitting fine. That's obviously more bad luck. But Christopher Morel, we could talk about the exit velocity all we want. The batting average below 200, okay, but your OPS below 700 from a premier position at third base, it's not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. But again, you're relying on so much going right And you have this philosophy, this infatuation where Jed Hoyer is constantly, alluding to teams like the Diamondbacks and the Rays and the Guardians. You're a big market team. You're one of the most valuable teams in all of sports. And yet you continue to just give these short-term contracts to good, not great players, and you're acting like a mid-market team. And it's very, very clear that the organization has drawn their line in the sand. Because I do think they care about winning, but they don't care about being the best. That's what gets me more than anything. A team with a historic ballpark that sells out no matter what, a national fan base, a sports book, a sports network, one of the most loyal fan bases in all of sports, and one of the biggest markets, should strive to be like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Braves and the Astros. I get why it's appealing to look at the Rays and look at the way they develop pitching. The same with the Guardians and their success. And the Diamondbacks had that run last year, but you're limiting yourself. You're really limiting yourself when you want to be like a mid-market team when you're a big market team.
That's true. Everything you were saying is not untrue.
I just talked about Dansby. Just hit a 2-run homer.
So you look at the Yankees, who are willing to invest in uh, in their club, and between three outfielders and their DH, it's Verdugo, Judge, Soto, and Stanton. Is there anybody on the Cubs, outfield or DH, that you would take over those four players?
No.
No. I mean, Verdugo's been their like most underrated player. Like he's been huge in them being very good. And obviously you're not taking anybody over Soto, Judge, or Stanton. Like they invested. They spent a lot of money on Giancarlo Stanton. They spent a lot of money on Aaron Judge, and they made a big trade for Juan Soto, and they're going to open the books and they're going to pay him a lot of money.
Yeah, and here's another thing too, is I don't want to sit here and say I need the Cubs to be the number one payroll in baseball. I don't need that. What is you talk about intelligent spending, and you've spent a lot of money on duds. You're still paying Trey Mancini and Tucker Barnhart. You know that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's just, if you talk about intelligent spending, well, I think when you're a big market, intelligent spending includes alluding some of that money to legitimate star players. I mean, does that make sense?
Yes. I agree with you. You don't have to be the highest spending team and pay through the nose and in the luxury tax but it's if there's somebody there that's going to help make your team infinitely better, spend the money on them. Don't be Jerry going, we're not going to be in on Shohei Ohtani and his 1,000 OPS. Who needs that? We just need 9 David Ecksteins.
Exactly. And the other thing that I look at too, when you look at roster construction, is you look at the way you've handled first base. And I like Michael Busch. I'm glad they made that deal.
It was a good trade.
It was a good trade. Um, it's just it's not trading for Michael Bush that should bother anybody because I thought it was a good trade. It's the fact that that was your solution, your sole solution offensively this winter. The fact that you're a big market team trying to win and your biggest bat solution was trading for a mid-20s prospect. Again, not complaining about the trade itself, but that was your solution. You didn't do anything else really offensively.
No, if you make that trade because you're like, you know what, we just spent a lot of money signing Shohei Ohtani, or we sent a lot of prospects for Juan Soto and we were about to pay him a lot of money. All right, we're going to have to fill holes with Michael Bush. Okay, that is good. But if that is a solution because you don't want to spend any money or any more money, and there's a hard line that you're not crossing, then yeah, then we have a problem.
Right.
Is if you're gonna pussyfoot around paying people money, then the contracts that you do give better be great. They
Right.
better work out really well.
Yeah. And you can look at some of the deals the Cubs have made where you can kind of just some of the ones that didn't work out, I could honestly just look at and say it didn't work. That's going to happen. You know, I mean, because I was on board with the Trey Mancini move. It didn't work. Okay. The Eric Hosmer move and the Tucker Barnhart move, I think were complete wastes of moves, and they ended up proving so. Um, I think that you can look at the bullpen and say, yeah, you've had some injuries and it sucks, but you really couldn't bring in one more veteran backhand reliever. You really relied on what you had last year, the same bullpen that ran out of gas at the end, and you missed the postseason because of it. That's what that's what blows me away is that Jed relied so much on replicating those 2.5 whatever months last year where everything just went right. Because you know what happened in the end? It didn't go right. You had a 90% chance to go to the postseason in early September, and you didn't. I don't think Jed realizes sometimes how much it took to get back into that race because you were down bad by mid-June last year. Then the London trip happened and you started to get hot again, but you dug yourself a hole last year. It was looking bleak and you needed everything to go right to get back in it, and it did. You were expecting that same thing to happen again. I just think that's not acceptable. Where would we be if we were to bulletproof the bullpen just a little more?
I mean, we've been screaming that, uh, you know, for months. For months. Just can we add a guy? Can we add a guy? Have I'm not saying you got to go out and overpay for all types of bullpen arms. You got to have a couple guys that you are just like rock solid about, and then you build from there. Is
A
if you've got two guys that you're just like, you know what, these guys are my go-to. I trust them. They're gonna pitch well for us. And if everybody else is a question mark, if you've got two guys you're okay with, you're good with, you build the rest around it. And the Cubs have nobody except for, I guess Leiter is he's had some moments, but for the most part has been pretty reliable. And Merriweather got injured. And I'm still hearing All-Star break.
Yeah. I think the Tyson Miller pickup's been good so far.
Why don't they utilize him more?
I don't know. I don't
Ugh.
know.
Like the fact that how bad this bullpen has been. Why is Craig Counsell so stuck on using guys in the same spot that they keep messing up?
Because he was in Milwaukee all those years with all those high-powered, reliable relievers that would pitch to 1.9 ERAs.
Uh, Yency Almonte is going to supposed to start a rehab this
Yeah,
coming week. That would be good. And Jose Cuas got DFA'd. That's good.
yeah.
But then, you throw in here Ben Brown's mystery neck ailment.
You have Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks. They're going to be out a while.
Yep.
And
Wicks with that
it,
oblique. And
yeah,
now Mike Talkman,
yep,
not a pitcher, but he's going to be out 4 to 6.
yeah. Nothing's going right. And I'm not as worried about the starting rotation with Brown going down or Wicks going down, but shit, man, if you had a full rotation with a healthy Wicks, you could send Brown to the bullpen and be an asset out of the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Brown, Miller, Merriweather, like those. All right, suddenly you're like, I can live with this bullpen.
you could probably over the last month cut the blown games down by like 2 or 3, and those make a big difference
Yeah,
with those guys healthy.
If you cut a third of your blown saves this season, you're in the wild card. Like you're a wild card team at this point.
Yes, you're in control of the wild card. Um, there is no way in shit you can keep sending Hector Neris out for the ninth. And if my research was correct a while back, I remember Hector Neris as a closer in that spot, career-wise, not very good. Much
No.
better setup guy.
Yes.
He's being misused.
Mm-hmm.
Seems
But
like a great guy, but that's not the role for him.
yep. And now you've got Kyle Hendricks back in the rotation.
Yeah. What's a shame is they got shut out that Friday game, and I think Kyle Hendricks pitched as good of a game as he's pitched, like even counting last year, like one of the best games he's pitched in multiple years on Friday.
That's true. But
I don't know if that's going to carry over though.
talk to me when he's pitched three straight quality starts. Talk to me when he
The
pitches two back-to-back quality starts.
the good news, he doesn't have to see the Braves this year.
That's fair.
And I don't know when they play the Phillies, but
This month.
you can't start him against the Phillies.
Yeah, I believe it's in like a week or two, the end of this month. Because my wife's birthday is at the end of the month. She's a Phillies fan and she wants to go, and I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to watch my team just get their ass beat.
Yeah. I don't either. I don't either.
Like that's not a good time.
No. No, my desire to go to games has always, no matter how good or bad the Cubs have been, I've always had an itch to go to every game I could. For the first time in my life, I really just don't. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to sit and watch it. I don't want to spend money or time on it. I just don't. Right now, I just don't.
All right, Phillies Cubs, July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Oh, God. Independence Day weekend.
Yes.
They are going to kick our ass.
At least we'll get to watch fireworks.
Yeah, by the Phillies hitting balls on Sheffield and Waveland nonstop.
It's just going to be brutal watching Schwarber beat
Oh,
our
you
ass.
know he's going to dent the scoreboard once or twice.
Yep.
God, it's bleak. This sucks.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And the All-Star voting is going on right now, and
Ha!
the Cubs do not have anybody in top 5 voting at any position.
I think Shota Imanaga might be the lone representative this year.
I mean, who else deserves it?
Maybe Javier Assad. Justin Steele just hasn't pitched enough. He's been hurt. Um, yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, so that's where we are. You just I want I just keep wanting this magic reset button where you're like, oh, okay, the offense wakes up and the bullpen, they don't be great, but everybody gets healthy and suddenly they're serviceable and the starting pitching continues to be good and then they win, 12 straight games and jump back into everything. But I'm trying to be honest with myself. They are far enough along in the season where their record is who they are.
Yeah. I mean, the the problem that I have is every time they win a really nice game, like the Saturday game against the Cardinals, Shota Imanaga was electric again. You had a really nice, timely 3-run home run by Ian Happ. Really feel good win. And there was zero drama from the bullpen. Zero. And you're like, okay, this feels good. And just like every of the few wins you've had over the past year, dud. Just followed up by a complete dud.
Yeah. And they're 45% of the way done with the season. Almost half.
Yeah.
And so it's what are the odds that there's this miraculous turnaround? Sure, they might have a better second half, and okay, and maybe because of the how bad everybody else is, they find a way to
You
eke.
2020 bears this.
Yeah, but here's the thing too, is with this many teams around the wild card, unless something drastically changes in the next few weeks, like there's not going to be a lot of trades because people are going to be like, all right, well, there's going to be a ton of buyers and no sellers.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you got to think the few teams that are in the basement, like the Sox and the Rockies and the Marlins and the A's, they got to be thinking, all right, time to open up shop.
Yeah,
Let's see who wants to bid on our stuff.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's the Angels, the Oakland A's, the White Sox, Colorado, and Miami.
Yeah.
Those are your sellers right now. That's it.
Yes.
And they've all got somebody that or some players that people are going to want, and there's just not enough sellers that unless teams start to bottom out, you know, you're gonna just see, those teams get stupid offers on their players.
Yep.
Good for the White Sox, but bad for the Cubs.
Yep.
I'll talk about White Sox.
Sure.
They also don't have anybody in the top 5 voting in for All-Star games.
What you mean Operation Martin Maldonado isn't working?
Do you know how bad Operation Martina Maldonado is going? Adley Rushman is over 250,000 votes over the second place catcher, and those catchers are so far ahead of Martin Maldonado. Like it is not working. That is not a good campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it was an attempt at, you remember the John Scott All-Star thing?
Yeah, except that worked.
And that's the thing. It was trying to be that and womp womp.
You know what's funny about like a John Scott being in the All-Star game in the NHL is if you go back until he went to the NHL, that dude was probably one of the best players in every league he played in before the NHL.
Oh, sure.
You know, I read the Bob Probert book, and like he talked about everywhere he went, he was like the best player and high scorer, and he realized going into the NHL that he wasn't good enough to be that the player he was in every other league. So he had to find something else. So he just beat everybody's ass. You got to do something. You know, he got to be the physical guy and the net front presence guy, and he had to change who he was and find his niche in the league. You know, because everybody is an exceptional player. That you know, when you keep going up in talent, some players just you hit your peak. You can't go any higher than this is as a scorer and a as the best player in the league anymore. And
Right.
John Scott probably in the juniors and the peewees was probably just so light years ahead of everybody else. Probably even through the AHL was one of the better players. Comes to the NHL and he was a serviceable player, but nowhere near an all-star level. So the fact that he went out there is just ridiculous.
Right. It really is. And I'll never forget when that happened, what a big story that was. And the attempts at mimicking that kind of thing have kind of just not worked in any sport.
Yeah, it's because it's funny the first time,
Right.
maybe the second time, and then after that, like when it becomes like I don't
A,
know,
a regular thing, so to speak.
yeah, it's silly.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so the White Sox still bad. They're they're on pace to be 42 and 120 this year. Um, yeah, I know we both talked about there's no way that they're losing more than 50 games. I mean, not winning more, at least 50 games. Sorry. Uh, but man, as that season goes on, that looks like that might 50 wins might be lofty.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny because there's been a lot of games where the White Sox have played overall kind of well and they still end up losing. Like they really fought the Mariners hard, but they lost in really ugly fashion too.
I mean, they've been scoring runs at least for the most part. Um,
Paul DeYoung, man, he's got like what, 14 homers?
yeah, they're gonna get something for that dude,
They are. You wish the other shortstop in town was doing that, but I won't go on that tangent anymore.
or at least was making as little money as Paul DeYoung is.
Well, that's the thing. He's hitting 14 home runs and he's getting paid in bubble gum.
So Drew Thorpe had his first start and looked awesome.
Uh-huh.
Then he had his second start and he looked awful. And even more concerning than his lack of command and the number of runs he gave up is that fastball was like 90 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's when you're kind of an off-speed reliant type of pitcher, you're going to be under the pressure to make certain type of adjustments because you don't have the room for error like you would if you were a power high velocity type pitcher. And changeups are one of the hardest things to hit. So when you execute, you could be successful, obviously. But, I just think that it's going to be a work in progress with him. And it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of, just battling through the growing pains. But I think it is going to be worth it in the long run with him. But I would just say, be prepared to go through some growing pains with him. Um, the velocity, obviously, you don't want to be leaving 90-mile-an-hour fastballs over the heart of the plate. You got to, execute on that. But yeah, it's gonna be a challenge to get to the big leagues and adjust to it. But I think he can.
Yeah, it's I'm not writing him off any stretch, but you know, I was hoping there would be like a Paul Skeens type start, and um and it hasn't looked like that. Obviously different pitchers, but uh it's this road is going to be bumpier than I think I was hoping for the White Sox. Um, but it's funny. I keep seeing all these people like, oh, Crochet on the trade block, could trade Crochet. It Why? Like Crochet is still team controlled for years, and he's only a year older than Drew Thorpe. Why the hell would you do that? I don't understand.
Well, do you get while the value's high, or do you put your faith that he's going to be a long-term piece?
I mean,
He's never been a starter before. He's never pitched as many innings before, and he's got an injury history. I think it is valid to try to balance what you want to do there.
it's a good thing that we have, Chris Getz, who's been with the organization, he would know. He's an expert on
That's
these things.
true.
This is why you just without interviewing anybody else, just hire Chris Getz, because he knows what to do with a Garrett Crochet. If they would have interviewed somebody else and hired somebody outside the organization, they wouldn't know what to do with Garrett Crochet. It's just they would take them years to figure it out.
Yeah, because you bring in somebody new. Oh, it's good. They have to figure it out.
God, maybe Chris Getz turns out to be a good GM. I don't know. I'm not hopeful, but maybe. And but the fact that you just didn't bother interviewing other people outside the organization, that's our guy right there, is the stupidest thing.
Yeah.
So dumb. Um, but yeah, the White Sox, they're playing better, but they're just not winning. And this team is brutally bad. And I saw a thing in the Athletic, and it was like, they were telling every team's like unsung hero, and they were like, where would this team be without Paul DeYoung?
Oh boy.
They're like they'd only have 17 wins instead of 19.
Oof. Oh no. Willie Mays died.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It just popped up.
That's a tough one, man.
Dang.
That
Just popped up on my. Oh man. That's sad.
wow.
Shit.
Man.
So we want to do a little Willie Mays memorial tribute here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do one for Jerry West too.
That's true. So dang. Hey, you know what they say? They go in like in threes.
Uh,
Jerry West and Willie Mays. Yeah, let's combine this baby. Let me pull up the stats. Because we know that Jerry West was more than just a Hall of Fame basketball player. He was more than, a million-time NBA champion. He was part of basketball lore. He defined what the NBA is today. I mean, the freaking logo is after him, man.
yeah. you've had Jordan and Magic and Larry who made this game what it is, they elevated it to the popularity. Before Larry and Magic, the NBA finals were on tape delay. But with those guys, they still never were like, let's change the NBA logo. It's Jerry West. And that dude was huge to the rise of the NBA.
Yes, he was.
Um, you know, and how important he was, for the Lakers organization even after he stopped playing. If you watched, I don't know if you watched that Showtime series, Showtime,
Yeah.
where
Uh-huh.
is you look at like how important he was to that organization.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, he won an NBA championship as a player, but being part of that organization for so long, you know, you collect your rewards, going past just being a player.
Yep.
Boy, you look at Jerry West. He was an all-star every single year of his career. He played from age 22 to 35. All with the Lakers, was an all-star every single year. Every single year. He was also a five-time all-defensive. He was the finals MVP in 68, 69. You look at just a 12-time all NBA on the 75th all anniversary team. I mean, it just endless accomplishments for Jerry West as a player and beyond. Uh, and when he passed away, that was a bigger deal than just the NBA. It was all of professional sports. It was a big deal when he died. And people paying tribute to him, it was athletes from everywhere. You had baseball players talking about him, football players, everybody. That's how big of a deal when he died. That's just how big of a deal Jerry West was to the sports world, truly. He was part of the sports culture, so to speak.
And then Willie Mays, man.
Willie Mays.
Willie Mays played professional baseball in the Negro Leagues, which, you know, don't act like that's the minor leagues. That was
No,
that was equally as good,
if not
potentially, if not
better.
better than MLB. And he was a teenager. He was in high school and he played for the Barons.
Uh-huh.
He When he graduated high school, that's when he went to the Giants. So he played in the Negro Leagues is in high school. Is uh it's he's arguably the greatest baseball player of all time.
Oh, he's at least top, like at the very least top five.
You know, it's funny. I always make the joke about, the Willie Mays on the Mets, because you're like, you have this guy who's just absolutely the beacon of the sport. And and boy, was he brutal when he played for the Mets. And so it was just like this stark difference. Like it's like a different guy had the same last name or the same name, but his he was an absolute the quintessential five tool player.
Uh-huh.
Um, when he retired, he had the National League record for most runs scored. He was ranked second in league history behind Stan Musial in games played, third in home runs, at bats, RBIs, total bases, extra base hits, and walks, fourth in hits, fifth in slugging, and eighth in doubles. Um, he still holds the major league record for games as a center fielder, putouts as an outfielder, and extra inning home runs, and ended his career only behind Ty Cobb in total games as an outfielder.
He's part of the 3,000 plus hit club. He's part of the very exclusive 600 plus home run club, part of the lifetime 300 batting average club, uh, career OPS of 940. He won the Gold Glove 12 times. I just insane what he accomplished. I mean, you look at season by season, he was leading the league in like home runs and stolen bases, like early in his career. Obviously, later in his career, he didn't steal as much as he got older, but early on, he was 24 years old when he hit a MLB leading 51 homers. That's
And
crazy.
and he got drafted in the army to go fight in the Korean War.
Yes, he did.
So just imagine how good he would have been for missing all that time.
Yeah.
Um, it's unreal, like how good Willie Mays was, and not only as a player, but what a historic, you know, person as far as like uh, the gentrification of baseball, the integration. Like he was so important for that as well. I know Jackie Robinson is, the idol, but Willie Mays is still so important uh for the rise in black people in MLB. And this is, I mean, he's 93, so it's time he lived a good long life, but and this one still sucks.
Yep.
um yeah, jeez. um I don't know what else to say. Willie Mays, man.
Yep. One of the greatest that ever lived.
And it's funny, there were a ton of stories from yesterday that he wasn't going to be able to attend the Negro League tribute, and then dies. So he must have taken a bad turn there.
Yeah. 93 years old, lived a long life.
Yep. Jeez. Sad.
Yep.
Willie Mays. Uh all right. You want to talk Bulls or you want to talk Blackhawks?
Your pick.
Let's talk Blackhawks. Um, there's not much going on. This is our second to last show before the NHL draft. And I've been watching more and more Macklin Celebrini and reading more about him. And honestly, he's not that far behind Connor Bedard as a player. And he's a real good player. Like,
Yeah,
man,
he is.
I didn't realize, like, I'm like, oh, he's good, but is he exceptional? And when the Blackhawks didn't win the lottery, and boy, that would have been a good lottery to win. Is I know once you do back to back, like you can't win it again for however many years. I'm like, worth it. Is this guy's real good? Um, I know you're going to get a good player at number two, but boy, that'd have been real nice to have Macklin Celebrini on this team as well.
Yeah, well, got lucky the one time.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
But in like watching clips and reading a lot about the draft, I think it realized why the Blackhawks made that trade a few weeks ago. where they traded up to number 18, is because from everything I'm reading is most people are saying that the cutoff for getting a potential is you go in there with expectations of a draft pick, even if they're lofty, but that window of guys that people think are going to be a top 6 forward in the NHL or a top 2 defenseman, most people have it at 17 to 18 players in this draft. So the fact that the Blackhawks traded up to number 18 tells me that they think that that is correct, and they want a second bite at the apple in getting one of those dudes.
Yeah, well,
And so that's good. I mean, you lost a little bit of value in there. You gave up a second round pick, but ultimately if you look at the math of the pick values, you lost out on what would be an equivalent of a 5th round pick. But if giving up essentially the value of a 5th round pick, losing out on that gets you a bite at the apple of, one of the last guys that has the potential to be a top 6 or a top 2 defenseman, I think it's well worth it.
yeah, I think so too. I mean, they didn't do that trade just for nothing. There was clearly an articulate plan here.
Yeah, and I don't think that before the draft they're going to come out and be like, yep, we only had 18 players with a 1st round grade, and so we had to trade out of 20 because then we'd have, at that point at 20, we'd have to hope somebody the Minnesota Vikings drafted a quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's you move up into the top 18 picks. If there's 18 guys, then you guarantee you're going to get one of those dudes. And odds are, from what I'm reading, I think people know 15 of those top 18 are going to go. There might be some shuffling in of where they slot in there, but like they can tell you these 15 players are going to be the first 15 picks in some order. And then after that, like they saw a couple of them might slip a few picks and make it into the mid 20s possibly, but these are the dudes. And so if you get into the top 18 picks, you're guaranteeing yourself getting one of those guys and better shot of long-term success with that player. So I'm okay with it. I'd much rather have the higher, if you're making a trade like that, move up with the highest pick going to you, and even if you're losing some value on it.
Right, for sure.
I don't really have much else Hawks.
Yeah, I
They're
don't either. I'm looking forward to the draft and free agency, just ready to see how this next era is gonna shape up, this next phase.
yeah. I'm just hoping that they actually make moves, because I think fans have been, for the most part, pretty understanding and
I think so
on
too.
on board with what they're doing. But I think if you try to squeeze one more year of intentionally being bad, you're gonna burn bridges, and you're gonna have fans start turning against you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So I recognize that you're not gonna be good, um, but you need to be a lot better than you have been the last several years.
Yeah.
You've at least got to be able to sniff the playoffs.
You can't be tank bad.
Yes. Um, but I was reading somewhere, and I'm trying to find the stat, but the biggest point jump in the record between in 2 years, like from one year to the next, if you took that biggest point jump in NHL history and you added it to the Blackhawks points last year, they still didn't make the playoffs.
Eh.
So So they're a good way away from being like a playoff team. But
Yeah, we know that.
there's a big difference between those like San Jose and the Blackhawks and some of those bottom feeder teams and playoff teams. Like there's a wide range in there. And I just want them to be much, much closer to the playoff teams.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Um, yeah, so I'm trying, man. Oh yeah, biggest turnarounds. Uh, um, bu- bu- yeah, I'll have to look it up, but it's the the biggest point jump in between 2 years ever uh was a pretty sizable jump, like 40 points or something.
Yeah, that's a big swing.
And how many points did the Blackhawks have last year?
I didn't even count, frankly.
Let's see. Blackhawks had so they would have been 92 points, and they would not have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
uh,
I
but yeah, the Bulls. The big story on them is they apparently, based on a mandate to make the playoffs, turned down what turned out to be a top 10 pick for Alex Caruso.
all thanks to a mandated memo from ownership saying you can't do that. We want to focus on making the playoffs and being delusional because that's Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah, what an asshole move. Like, I know we've all been shitting on AK, for a couple seasons now, but if this is what he has to deal with, is like, it makes his job a whole lot harder. The fact that he can't spend money, and he's not allowed full autonomy to do what he needs to do with this team.
Yeah, I mean, blame is to go around, but it goes to show that the buck still stops at ownership, and it all starts at the top, and it just trickles down.
Yeah, bad ownership, and that's what it is. The White Sox and the Bulls have terrible ownership, and you're stuck having to deal with that. And sure, yeah, AK, there's blame to go around, but the fact that you ran this team back and you didn't try to, there's blame to be had on his part. But the fact that he's the president of basketball operations, and he has a thumb over the top of him, not letting him do what he wants to do, is real shitty. Jerry's not a basketball dude. Jerry doesn't know basketball. Jerry just goes, mandate, win. Like, okay, that's not helpful. You hired a dude who definitely wants to win, and you're going to be like, oof, mandate here, like as if he's not trying to win basketball games.
Yeah, it's sad. And you won't swing for the luxury tax because you don't want to. You've clearly just put it out there that you want to be a middling team that's competitive enough to make the playoffs, so you get a little extra revenue and that's it. You don't want to go invest in being a great team. They've made that more than clear, and that's what it's going to continue to be.
And the fact that Jerry, like, he thinks that saying that his team made the playoffs is like a bulletproof vest where he can deflect all criticism of him. We made the playoffs. You're gonna do made the playoffs. Like that's what he wants. He just wants that as a bulletproof vest. To like, oh hey, why don't you spend? Ding, made the playoffs. Pew, made the playoffs. Pew pew, made the playoffs. Like that's he thinks that's a shield, prevent him from catching any valid shots at him. And it's not. It might make it worse. The fact that that's all you want and you're good with that.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, that's how it's been. That's how it will be. This is nothing new. This has gone on for 20 plus years. And you've gone through regime, rebuild, coach after coach. You let, Garpax do it all those years with how many different coaches and how many different players and how many different, cores. And then you bring in AK and the roster construction is still bad and you're being handcuffed for making notable trades. It's just a giant mess, and it really gives you truly no hope that anything's going to get drastically better with this team.
Yeah, if you wanted to, not overpay players and not bring in huge free agent names and be competitive to make the playoffs, you should have just kept Tibbs and fired Garpax. That's what you would have gotten you. Tibbs is not going to win an NBA championship, but boy, he's gonna squeeze every bit out of those teams, and run them into the ground. But he's gonna squeeze everything out of them, and that's what you wanted. That's who you should have kept.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about them anymore either.
All right, should we wrap this up talking a little Bears?
Sure.
We're a few weeks away from training camp starting. There's not a ton to talk about, but just something to keep an eye on. I'm not particularly worried at this point, but there are only 10 NFL draft picks that are unsigned, and 2 of them are Bears. Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze account for 20% of the unsigned drafted players in the NFL. If in 3 weeks they haven't signed, then I'll start to be nervous. But since they had the slotted contracts, there's really not much left for them to hold out about. There's the offset language and a few things here and there as far as like the language, but mostly it's boilerplate as far as the compensation goes. So, it should be fairly straightforward. I'm just hoping that, this gets done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it yet. I'm not really even thinking about it. But
let's see. Keenan Allen changed representation, which makes me think that he's trying to get that new contract worked out with the Bears. And I don't know if the Bears are in the place that they want to sign him to an extension. I'm guessing that they want to see how Rome looks, and how Keenan looks. And as nice as it would be to have this 3-headed monster, it's hard to commit that much money to your wide receiver group. So I have a feeling that the Bears probably are leaning towards having this be one and done. But
it's kind of what I'm thinking too.
But the fact that Keenan Allen is changing his representation just tells me that he's gearing up to try to get a new contract done with the Bears. And if they can find something that's fair, I'm all for it. But you're gonna need to re-up DJ Moore at some point.
And we see how expensive these wide receivers are getting.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's not going to break the bank anymore.
No, he's not, but DJ Moore will.
DJ Moore will get a lot of money. And so, you don't want that to inhibit that DJ Moore deal. So you got to find some sort of happy medium. And but I don't think we see that until we see how the season goes. If Keenan Allen gets hurt right away or gets way outplayed by DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, then yeah, you don't need him. But if he starts balling out and is healthy and a big part of your team, then you got to reconsider that.
Yep.
Let's see. The Bears brought in wide receiver / kick returner DeAndre Carter, who was with the Bears a few years ago in the Ryan Pace era. He's mostly a kick return guy. I think he's a camp guy because Velus Jones is a much better kick returner. And DeAndre Carter's not bringing you any value as a receiver. So it's probably just another camp body as a kick returner.
Yeah. It's the time of year to do it.
You got to fill out that 90-man roster for training camp. So,
Uh-huh.
And then the only two things I had about the Bears is it looks like Tyson Bagent is going to be firmly entrenched at that number 2 quarterback spot.
I mean, no QB controversy rolls this spring, baby.
None whatsoever. Is Caleb Williams is number 1, Tyson Bagent is number 2, and Mark Rip. I'm sorry, what's Rippin is going to be your number 3. That's where you're at. And from everything I'm hearing is Tyson Bagent has looked like he's he's grown as a player and he's absorbing this new playbook, and he's still got that quick release, and the Bears are very happy with him as that backup quarterback. So I'm okay with it. I thought, I think he really understood what Luke Getsy's offense was, and there was a lot of good things that he did in that offense, a lot of quick. It's just that he didn't have the weapons, he didn't have the weapons on the field with him, but he also doesn't have the arm talent that, legit number 1 for, starting quarterbacks have. But, I think he's very smart and he knows what he's doing, and he looked really confident out there. So I'm happy. I'm happy with that backup quarterback. Makes no money, and he's not afraid to come in there and play, and doesn't look like a deer in the headlights.
Well, and the nice thing about the backup quarterback making no money is we've said this before on this show. Backup quarterbacks are not cheap necessarily these days.
No, like there's some that make like $7 million a year.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's a
I
lot
know.
of money. It's a lot of money.
They're getting a lot of money to know the system and to know the playbook by heart.
Yeah, and I think Tyson Bagent, like he's a student of the game. Like, there's a lot of things you could say about him, but he busts his ass, and he knew last season, knew that playbook. And from what I'm hearing is he's learned this one, and with that year of growth and that swagger that he has, that he inherited directly from his dad, and he's like, teammates and coaches love him, and he's got the arm to play well enough to keep you in games, and it seems like a win-win, and to have taken him out of such a small school, Shepherd University.
And I heard this somewhere, and this is not me saying that, oh, Justin Fields wasn't as good as Tyson Bagent last year, but it sounded like I heard rumblings that the Bears coaching liked Tyson Bagent because he knew the system better. I don't know how true that is, but you saw Tyson Bagent. He didn't necessarily make mistakes because he wasn't on the same page. He made mistakes when he was trying to make the big play that a starting QB makes and just doesn't have quite the arm that a starting quarterback should have. Obviously, when he just game managed, he did a good job. When he played teams like the Raiders and the Panthers, he just managed the game, short, dumb passes, quick, get the ball out, hand the ball off. That he executed well. When you saw him play the Saints, where he tried to do more, QB1 things, you did see him connect on a few throws like to Cole Kmet, but you also saw some tough interceptions where you say, okay, that's why the arm is a backup QB, not a starting QB in the NFL.
I think the coaching staff wishes they could have taken the quick release of Tyson Bagent, the
Yes.
decisiveness and the quick release, and put
Yes.
that in Justin Fields.
Right. Yeah. You take that understanding of the playbook, the decisiveness, the quickness, and you give it to the body and the arm of Justin Fields. Absolutely.
It's tough to teach. It's they already messed with Justin Fields' mechanics and changed how, which foot was forward when he got the shotgun snap, and how this footwork is stepping back, and they mess with his arm mechanics. And it's, you either have a quick release, you can make your release a little bit quicker, but you're either a quick release quarterback or you're not. And if you're wholesale changing somebody's throwing mechanics to make them throw a little faster, what do you lose in doing that? It's you're either going to have a not confident quarterback because they're so focused on the mechanics that they're not letting the game go, you know, flow at the speed that it should. You're not, you know, quarterback is such a tough position to translate from college to the pros. Most positions, people are pretty good at it. There's things that fail, but quarterback is so hard because there's so much of the game that's mental preparation and mental ability. And not saying Justin Fields is dumb, not at all. He's a very smart dude, but the how quickly you can process that game, how confident you are about your ability to process it, and uh, how rattled do you get, and when you get rattled, do you lose the focus? If you're focusing on your footwork, can you also focus on the progressions and reading the defense? And if you're so busy worrying about your mechanics, and like, my coach told me I have to be left foot forward when I catch the snap, and I have to drop three steps back, and then I have to do this. Like, are you worried about what's going on in the game? It's all those things. How do you translate that? Even calling the play in the huddle, it's it's hard. The like you have to work on hard calls, hard counts, getting the play in. I'm sure you saw the videos of training camp when John Gruden was still coach. And was it who was it? Was it forgot what quarterback it was, but was it Chris Sims that he was like screaming at him because he couldn't call the play? Like, he kept bungling calling the play, not running the play, actually saying it, hearing it in his headset, or hearing Gruden tell it to him, and then repeating it to the rest of the players in the huddle. And Gruden was pissed. And that it's a lot that goes in there. And college, most of the times they simplify it. They even have guys holding cards on the sidelines with things, and it's much shorter play calls. And then you come into the pros, and suddenly the game is faster. The windows to be open are infinitely smaller. And then suddenly you're getting guys that are coaches that are trying to change all of the things that you did to be successful. And 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 then you're trying to learn plays and how to call the plays. It's a lot to ask. It's not a surprise that so many quarterbacks fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at how many quarterbacks are drafted or signed by NFL teams, and only the tiniest chunk becomes stars, and then another tiny chunk become solid, serviceable guys. Another tiny chunk become backups, and then the rest fizzle out quick.
Yeah, it's true.
It's the most important yet toughest job, arguably, to play in professional sports.
Yep. And then the last thing I had for the Bears is I saw some season stats bets, prop bets came up. And one that piqued my interest is the over under 1/2 touchdown for Mercedes Lewis. So essentially, does he catch one touchdown or does he not?
I say he does.
I'm going to find where that sports bet is. I'm going to put $100 on that bet because that seems like a sure thing to me. I have a feeling because he doesn't really get hurt. He plays in those goal line situations, and I just know I just have this like in the back of my head. Caleb Williams is going to love playing with Mercedes Lewis, and he's going to be at some point go, you know what? I'm getting this guy a touchdown, and he's going to get that dude a touchdown.
I remember his touchdown last year. It was on Christmas Eve against the Cardinals. He was right in the back of the end zone all alone. I'll never forget it.
Mercedes Lewis. I love that dude. Hope he plays next year too.
I want that play forever.
I want that dude to be so old that he's been in the league longer than somebody that's new to the team. Like I want like the youngest draft pick of the Bears to be like, oh my God, this dude has been on the team since before I was born.
Oh yeah, it'd be funny.
That'd be really funny. That would make for a good Hard Knocks story.
Absolutely.
I hope Mercedes Lewis is the star of Hard Knocks. That would be so awesome.
Hey, if he's going to be part of the team, I'm sure we'll see him on it.
Am I safe to get a Mercedes Lewis jersey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If that's really what you want to invest your money in, I don't think you're going to do anything bad.
I can't get a Caleb Williams one. I just can't do it.
No, I'm not doing it either.
Like, do you know how many times I've brought it up on the website and I've hovered above, and I've put it in the shopping cart and I've hovered above pressing the buy button and I haven't done it? You know how many times I've done that? A lot. I can't do it. I can't be the reason that he fails.
You're gonna be about to hit that button and like just a giant shepherd's hook is gonna come and just get you and just pull you away from the computer. You're gonna have no idea where that shepherd's hook come from. You're gonna be at the computer and it's gonna appear and it's gonna loop around you and it's gonna pull you away.
The Iron Sheik pops out and throws me in a camel clutch.
I like the idea of every time you're tempted to buy a jersey, like something different happens. Iron Sheik gets you. A giant, shepherd's hook comes out. A giant cage falls on you.
It's the shepherd hook. It's like from the you ever watch Showtime at the Apollo, and
Yes.
whenever somebody's bad and they have the clown come out and hook them off like that. Somebody sprays me in the face with a fire hose. Like
a giant anvil comes down like a cartoon.
Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie UHF, the Weird Al movie from the 80s.
Bits of it.
Oh my God. Michael Richards, who was Kramer, he's in it. He's just like, all right, kids, who wants to drink from the fire hose? And he full blasts this kid in the face with a fire hose, sends him flying.
That's awesome.
Oh, God. I'm just picturing Kramer do that where he comes into the room and it does that that slide in, and he's got the fire hose in his hand, just slides into my office and just blasts me with the fire hose away from the computer.
And then Jerry comes out of nowhere. What the hell's going on? I'm
and
preventing another bust, Jerry.
uh, and then George Costanza comes out of the bathroom with no shirt on. Uh,
I was watching one of my all-time favorite Seinfeld episodes after work today before we got on the show. It was the Serenity Now
Insanity
episode.
later.
Lloyd Braun. Why can't you be more like Lloyd Braun? Why did you have to destroy 15 computers? George, buddy, I owe you one.
Uh, there's an episode I quote all the time, and nobody seems to remember it. It's where Jerry's training uh, with the Mendelbaums.
Mandelbaum, Mandelbaum, Mandelbaum.
They blood.
Blood. As soon as you said that, that line came into my mind. Blood.
Blood.
Wasn't it? And then Jerry's paranoid that his blood is in the Kramer's blood is in the fridge. He takes out the tomato juice. Oh, this is blood, isn't it?
That's such a good episode. Mendelbaum, Mendelbaum, Mendelbaum.
Yeah, I was also watching the episode where Kramer does the fake Jay Peterman tour on the bus, and they got the giant bags of muffin tops, and they're going like
Oh,
dump to dump trying to get rid of it. Can't do it.
the muffin tops. God, that show had some good episodes.
So, just countless great episodes. I could do a full segment on just great Seinfeld isms.
Oh man, I haven't watched that show in so long. I need to go back and is it streaming anywhere?
Netflix.
Oh, okay, I'll have to go back and find my favorite episodes. I still remember when Disney Plus first, the day it launched. It was what, like 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something ungodly time. And I set an alarm and I got up to watch. And I was like, I'm watching The Simpsons. And I'm like, this is what I'm doing. So I woke up and I watched the Australia episode of The Simpsons and the chili cook-off episode of The Simpsons. And then I watched Mr. Boogedy. And that was my whole plan. I'm like, Disney Plus, you were worth I signed up for 3 years. I'm like, I paid 3 years in advance. I'm like, you made the money today. Those 2 episodes of The Simpsons and Mr. Boogedy.
And you chose the chili cook-off, which is one of the all-time great episodes.
It is so good. So good. Yeah, that and the Australia episode.
Oh yeah, that one's good too.
Look at all those frogs. You call that a knife? This is a knife. This is a spoon. I've seen you play knifey spoony before. The first half of the chili cook-off is the greatest Simpsons episode ever. Marge, I'm missing the chili cook-off.
Hey, look, everyone. It's the big baby. Oh, this porridge is too hot. Oh, wah, wah, wah.
Mister, you don't want wax in your mouth, do you? Maybe I do,
son.
Maybe I do. Don't quit your day job, Chief, whatever that is.
Oh, it's only 2 alarm. I just want to be a big man in front of the kids. Dad, are you going to jail? We'll see, son. We'll see.
Come on, Marge. Less artsy, more fartsy. And the unheralded line from that episode, when Marge picks up the spice rack, she goes, 8 spices? Some of these must be doubles.
So many great lines in that one.
Oh my God, so good. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I've said my piece.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill's Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe, however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter /X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing